Good evening and welcome to Flat Earth United Kingdom. Joining me this evening, in no particular order, is Karlee Sunshine. How are you doing, Karlee?
Hello, I'm doing well.
And we've also got They Lie, Ohio. How are you doing?
Hey Nathan, how you doing, buddy?
Maybe we've got They Lie, Ohio. We've got him on camera. Can you hear us? Oh, we can.
Yeah, you're roboting a little bit.
Cool. Good enough for me. That's a hello. We've also got Stephen Chess. How you doing, Stephen?
Good, Nathan. How you doing?
I'm very well indeed. And last but not least, Validation Boy. How you doing, VB?
Hey, good to be back on here, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
That's very good to have you here. We're going to start off this show by talking about something extremely sky related. So in case you hadn't noticed, over on Globebusters, their title is very similar to ours. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm saying nothing at all. But yeah, so the sky and its limits was what they've been talking about, and maybe still talking about now. Hopefully they'll round out soon, as they've been running about 3 hours. But yeah, this show is going to talk about that. And Stephen Chess, who's probably about as cool as it comes when it comes to this sort of information, in a very nonchalant way, told me something amazing. And I'm going to give the floor to Stephen. Basically, hopefully he'll give it out in his own special way. I'm not going to preface how he's told us he's going to give you this information. But Stephen, can you tell us what you told me the other day?
It was basically in relation to what I said in one of your previous shows with Bob, if anyone watching has seen that, where I said that the temperature of the sun is hotter in relation to the phases of the moon when the moon is full in comparison to when the moon is slit. So that's going like in the 14 days going towards the full moon and the 14 days going away from the full moon. You're going to get hotter and hotter compared to that first day, and getting colder and colder compared to that 14th day. Follow me? It's sort of the phases of the moon in correlation with the temperature of the sun.
So as the moon's approaching the sun, what's happening?
Well, for me, this is more like an energy output and input. When the sun is putting out more energy, the moon is going to be more full. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a balance. You're going to have the sun is hotter and the moon is colder. You can't have one without the other. It's a big energy equation, so you got to add one, subtract the other. But basically, for me, I've made enough observations myself to conclude that the temperature of the sun on a null day, which means little wind or clouds or that kind of thing, is hotter when the moon is full in comparison when the moon is aslit. And what that means is that you can basically predict the temperature. Like I can say today, it's gonna, what's the date? The 16th, and the moon is gonna start going from full to less full over the course of the next 14 days. So it's going to be getting colder in comparison to today, in relation to your location on the plane, if you're in the north or the south, of course.
But you've got this down to a fine art now, to the point where you're sort of saying to your friends, well, let's place money on it if you think I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, nobody has taken me up on it so far, and they're kind of getting weirded out when they're seeing that I'm right. I mean, I've been tracking this for a while, and it seems obvious to me that it makes cycles. It gets hotter, then it gets colder, gets hotter, and then it gets colder. And I just found the correlation is, the phases of the moon, something that you can track it with.
Do you think there's any chance that the Globers could use this bit of evidence to try to prove that the sun is lighting the surface of the moon as opposed to the moon giving off its own light?
For me, this wouldn't make any sense on their theory, because it would have to involve the sun coming way closer and way further during the course of the month. You know what I mean? It's just something weird like that. It doesn't really make any sense on their model. So for me, it seems more like a game breaker, but everything in Flat Earth seems like a game breaker when it comes to the globe. So, it's just another thing to throw in the pile. So.
Yeah, to keep it concise, what you're essentially saying is there's cycles within cycles, and you can observe those in terms of the way they will affect the weather based on what the moon's doing, how it's approaching the sun, or how it's receding away from the sun, and how that will cause the surface to be cooling or heating in that 28-day or whatever it is, 29-day cycle.
Yes. So based on the location of the moon and the sun over the plane, you're going to have different types of days. So if you have a morning when the moon is out above the plane and the sun is coming around, you're going to have a very cold morning and probably a cold night because the sun or the moon was above the plane all night. You know what I mean? And the inverse is true. So on the opposite side of the month, when the sun is past the moon, and you'll have the sun first and then the moon, you'll have a hot day followed by a cooler afternoon or cooler night. You know what I mean?
Stephen.
So it kind of, yeah.
So I think you're really onto something, and when I get a chance to talk a little bit later, one of my theories might actually work and coincide with what you're saying. We might be able to work on this together, and there might be other ways that we can track, what you are observing. But also, I wonder if animals are affected by this too, because animals are affected by the moon phases. And I wonder if that's another way that we can kind of track or, see if this is really working the way you're saying it is, as far as the moon kind of regulating the sun's temperature. I've heard other people say that they thought that the moon, because of it giving off its own light and being a cooling agent, that it is actually, its whole purpose is to actually keep the sun from overheating, like its polar opposite.
I don't really know about that. I just sort of think that they're both converters, and the energy is a thing that fluctuates. So you have the sun that is the positive output, and then the moon that is the negative. The heat comes from the sun, puts it on the earth, and the moon comes around, pulls it up, puts it back.
Does this idea suggest that both the moon and the sun are at a constant rate of output of energy? It's just that where they're located is why we observe the differences? Or are you saying that the actual amount of energy that they're putting out fluctuates?
I think that maybe the energy from the source could fluctuate throughout the month. That's what I'm saying. Because
I would say that it would change.
Yeah, it's always a cycle.
And I think that that's another way that the moon helps us with, like, the seasons and the timing and the days, things like that, because it is changing, whether it's phasing or its energy output. There's so much about it that we don't understand. But I do think that animals are sensitive enough that they would probably be able to tell even slight variations in temperature and changes throughout to the moon phasing. So that might be another way that you could track something like that.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm interested in things that I can prove myself, and what I can have other people go out and prove themselves. It's like I'm not interested in telling people exactly how it is. I'm telling you what I found, and what it means. What you can do with it.
Do you also think that this phenomenon could be affecting the amount of humidity that's in the air?
Oh, of course. Well, when you have the sun moving over the ocean, it's like it's all based on location, like where the sun is. If the sun's moving over the ocean, followed by the moon, or the moon in front of the sun, followed by the sun, you're going to have cold and then hot. So that's going to be a pretty big differential, which is going to cause, clouds. And you got to think, like, if you've heard of the Elias effect, it's a Foucault's pendulum thing. Like when there's a solar or lunar eclipse, the Foucault's pendulum actually changes directions. Something that doesn't really work on the globular model either. The Earth didn't just change direction.
I was getting ready to ask you. I'm sorry. Ask you how the eclipse would affect anything. Have you gone into any of that, or?
Yes. From what I found, the windiest days of the month are when the sun and the moon are close. So you're not going to have too many differentials, which are going to cause, clouds and that kind of stuff. But when the sun and moon are like right close or on top of each other, the windiest days you're going to have, from what I found.
all of this would suggest that these two celestial objects are definitely inside of what some may consider a dome.
Well, I think if there is a dome, it's so high that we'll never reach it, and so far that we'll never reach it. It doesn't matter to me at this point. There could be more land or whatever, but I think that there is some sort of lensing effect. Could be whatever you want. It could be a flat sky, but the sun and the moon going above and around is causing an electromagnetic effect and us heating and a cooling effect, which is going to affect everything in the air and the water. You know, causing tides and that kind of stuff.
Before we get on to the speculation of the sort of what and the why, these are observations that Stephen has made, and that really is all there is to it. They are observations that he has gone out and looked at and taken and made himself. So yeah, we can speculate how and why and the output differences. And I think you said already, Stephen, the interview, I think it was with Bob Nodell, we went through the teeter-tottering of the moon. Same thing with Cami when we interviewed her. And that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about how you as an individual, the audience member I'm talking to now, can do this yourself. So anybody who's worked in the meteorological industry has been indoctrinated in the same way as everything else we look at in the flat earth arena. It's part of the education system for them to look at their instruments and go by their training, as opposed to just go out and observe what's actually occurring on a day-to-day basis and see the cyclical nature that Stephen is detailing to us now. But Stephen, you were sort of tentative about telling this information because of something that Stars Our Souls had said. Can you explain that?
Well, I want people to, like he said, to do their own experiments, come to their own conclusions. Like the last video he put out was, I'm deleting all my videos, guys. Do your own experiments, come to your own conclusions, something like that. And I was like, no, you're the best in all this. And it's just like, after a while, I figured out that I could just go out and figure out everything for myself. And he was right. That's the best thing to do, because that's how you convince yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all we're really talking about. So I just wanted to get that in there before we go on to the speculation, because that's kind of what people in the comments will undoubtedly hold us to account on, rather than paying attention to the main bit of information which you've put forward. And you don't want to put that forward in a way that says, this is how it is, I've seen it, and I'm telling you that's how it is. It's more to say, go out and double check this. And it's easy. I mean, when Stephen was detailing this the first time, the second time, and then now, I was continually saying, yes, this is how I observe it. I'm out, I work in the evenings in the outdoors, and it makes immediate sense to me. Yes, I see these patterns. So it's not a stretch for anybody to come to these same conclusions. But you'll find yourself, if you debate other people about why, because we're on a flat plane and because they're local, they will presumably throw the weatherman's explanations for how it works, and we simply don't buy that, and they are academic in terms of their indoctrination. Would you guys all agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excited about this. This is something that we can all go out and do and observe. And the more of us that have these observations documented, then we are starting to build proof, build evidence. So good for you, Stephen.
For me, it's just the kind of thing that slaps me in the face every day. I walk outside and people are like, "Oh, it's so hot today," and I'm like, "Yeah, I knew it would be." I don't even ask. I'm just listening to people. Like my dad. Oh, it's really hot and windy. It's like, yep, like I knew it would be. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but somebody has to.
And these are the kinds of things that probably hundreds of years ago humans were in tune to, and now we've lost all that. We're so separated from what we used to be, and be starting to get back to that and be that observant. So good for you.
This is the kind of thing that would change calendars. We've had our calendars screwed with to make this less obvious to us. And without a calendar, you'd have the moon and you'd just observe what it was doing, and it would keep perfect time indefinitely. We don't need this 12-month calendar, but we abide by it because that's what we do globally.
definitely. It reminds me of the whole idea of the daylight savings time, you know, and how they jump it up and then they jump it back, but it still never seems to add up. Overall, it catches up, but that's just a very interesting phenomenon to me. I wonder if they only do that to cover something else up mathematically that's not happening, or is happening, or is not happening. I know that's a very general, broad statement I just made there. It doesn't really make sense, I guess, but I don't know if you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it detaches you from reality. It's all part of the same lie. So if you're going to convince people that they're an insignificant speck of dust floating through space, you've got to have any element of that you could study and follow. If it was just blatantly obvious that you can track these two objects in the sky that have a very distinct interaction with each other that affects the weather, that would fly in the face of the heliocentric understanding, in quotes, that you've got this sun that's a vast distance away and a moon that's much, much closer. And it wouldn't stack up if you were tracking your months using those two celestial objects. So they've got to lie to you about that particular aspect, and they've got to tie up the weather in academia. And that's probably why they get it wrong so often, when it should be so simple. I'm also willing to bet that's probably where they put in certain types of propaganda. So if you've got a cooling part of that cycle in a warm season, that's where they'd say, oh, you know, it's unusually cold, and it's because of all of the things we're doing to the planet and so on. And the adverse being true, if you go into a cold season and you're at the upper end of a warm part of that season, they'd say, you know, the Earth's obviously heating up. It used to be much colder. We'd have snow at this time of year normally, and it wouldn't necessarily be the case. But with a 12-month calendar, you're so screwed up in terms of what you're observing, you've got no idea what the weather should be like.
And one thing that Zoe mentioned when we were talking about this was that certainly chemtrails have an effect on this, you know, the temperature and everything. So you have to take that into consideration.
Is that the case? I don't know. Obviously I have to take the word for it.
I think that they use it to either try and cool it down or heat it up on occasion. Like right now I'm looking out the window and there's a bunch of them in the sky.
Certainly I've heard it referred to as cloud seeding before, but again, how do you confirm this? I've absolutely no way of knowing what they're doing up in the sky, no matter how many YouTube videos I watch, and I could repeat them all back to you now easily, but I simply don't know what they're doing up there.
Like I said, I think I can tell that it's been affecting the temperature. You know, it's been driving it down or keeping it up. You know, I think they're trying to. Oh, you go ahead, BB.
I'll definitely concur that, you know, like here in Central Florida, you know, it's generally hot all year round here, except sometimes we'll get these freak cold spells, you know, or it'll be in the middle of a cold season and we'll have really hot days, and then it doesn't make sense. So next thing you know, you look up in the sky and the sky's littered with crisscross patterns of you know, chemtrails, and then the weather gets back to normal, so to say, the very next day. You know, it happens all the time. I see it all the time here because I'm a pretty relatively flat area and I see nothing but sky all day. So it definitely, those chemtrails definitely have an effect. And like I was saying on a previous show, I'm a couple miles away from where they held this big WrestleMania, and it was an outdoor stadium, and I'm sure that the company didn't want to have rain on their show. So it was like a murky day, a bunch of planes flying by. By the end of the day, all the clouds were pushed out and the weather was great for those couple hours. The very next day, flash flood. That lasted one day long. So obviously something's going on.
Right. We have proof in China for the Olympic Games. They purposely have beautiful skies during the Olympics. After the Olympics, storms just rolled in for no apparent reason because it wasn't.
It's all the stuff that they had displaced, and it was coming back to find its natural balance.
Yeah, it might be an idea to get Daylight Ohio to just cut. I know you've got a phone running with the chat. If you just kill that, because it might be tying up some of your bandwidth, which we're losing half of what you're saying. But I'm gonna, if you can do that, I'm hopefully going to come to you in a minute to talk about lunar waves and things. But I just don't want to lose what you say when we do that. So yeah, if you just drop your chat for the time being, hopefully we can have a chat about lunar waves and things. Sorry, what were you going to say there, Karlee?
I was just going to say that regardless of whether or not we know what's really going on up there, we do observe something happening that's blocking our ability to see the sun and the moon. So no matter what it is, it's still blocking our ability to track the sun and the moon. It's still blocking our ability to get the health benefits we need from the sun. And it blocks our ability to use them for tracking the days and the seasons and the months and the years, things like that. So it's still, whatever they are, it's still an inability to use the sun and the moon for our benefit, like we were. But we do know that there is proof that there is cloud seeding, and there are companies out there that you can pay them to seed clouds so that it will rain 2 days before your wedding and not the day of your wedding. So we know that there is sort of cloud seeding, that it's even marketed, that they can make it rain when they want to. I mean, that's out there. You can pay for it. So whatever is going on as far as chemtrails is, I'm sure. We just are in the dark as to what the real agenda is and the real reasoning, but on the moon.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if the chemtrailing is like stages, like antibiotic stages, like they're giving you phase 1 and then they're giving you phase 2 the next week and phase 3. And by the end of it, everybody has a particular cold or a particular flu or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve.
I definitely don't think so, because there's much easier ways to do it. So we're fluoridated. So need I say more?
I'm not. Come on. Speak for yourself, Nathan.
Well, I was just going to say, if you can get it, if you want to drug people in a particular way, why not just stick it into the water supply? You don't need to stick it in the clouds.
In the clouds, it's guaranteed to affect everybody. In the water supply, like I'm sure Stephen, what he's trying to get at is that he filters his water. Is that what you're saying, Stephen?
Distiller.
Yeah, so you're distilling your water, so you're not getting the fluoridation from the system, I guess. But if they put it in the air, or if that water gets evaporated up into the air, it's still the moisture's still gonna get to you, to everybody.
To me, this seems more likely to be exactly like fluoride. It's kind of a waste product. You know what I mean? So the biggest waste product in the world, somebody else made a video about this, is coal ash. And they could be using a waste product aerosolized in some way just to affect the weather. But I don't know about like viruses in the air. That seems a little bit, I don't know.
But do you know what it reminds me of? Do you guys remember the very first, well, it wasn't the very first, but the Batman movie from the early 90s? Michael Keaton, the first one, Tim Burton's Batman. And the Joker character got the poisons not into one item like poisoning peanut butter and then anybody who eats peanut butter, because that would be easily detectable. Instead, he puts it into various different things, and you could have a lipstick and use it and be totally unaffected, but if you used lipstick and a particular deodorant, it would kill you. So it might be that, it's the Batman scenario. I'm just throwing it out there for fun.
Yeah. Maybe they put it out there for fun too.
Also
yeah, exactly, the Joker.
Yeah. Also, to be somewhat fair, I heard the other day, good old Heart Smiley Face, also known as Tim Osman, also known as cognitive dissonance and whatever, Ketalogic, saying that there's a difference between the fluoride that's in our water and the poisonous byproduct that is thrown away by corporations. He's saying that there's some kind of subtly different molecular structure, and that we all have it all wrong, and that we're not getting poisoned in our water. That's what he says.
Did he also tell you it strengthens your teeth?
I don't know. I didn't hear him say any of that. I was just saying that I heard him say that it's not exactly what we think, and of course, since we're flat earthers, we're automatically wrong about everything we say. So
Maybe move on to something that we've got absolutely no explanation for. Well, maybe we do. We will find out momentarily. But let's check if we can hear Daylight Ohio first. So can you just check if we can actually hear you?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect. So I'm going to do a bit of
$105 a month for Wi-Fi, and wow.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick up my screen so we can all see. Hopefully that's presented to everybody, and the audience can see what I'm about to share. But this is your lunar wave capture, if I make it nice and big and play it through. Now, to be fair, Dale Ohio asked before the show, do you have the facility to actually zoom in on this? And I don't. So what I'm going to do is just literally play it out and hope that you can talk us through it and tell us exactly what we're seeing here.
Okay. All right, at the bottom and at the terminator line, it starts right about now. There'll be two of them. The lunar wave we discovered is always in sets of two. It's hard to see, but when this started, I was looking at that exact point. I wouldn't have.
Oh no!
I think we've lost They Lie Ohio just at the critical moment, of course.
And Karlee.
He'll be back with us in just a few moments, I don't doubt. Like he says, he's paying how much for his Wi-Fi? he's back with us.
$105, Nate.
Oh, we've got a much better signal now, though. So you're clear as bell now. That's much better. So I'll screen share again. If
Can you hear me?
Talk your way through. Dun dun dun. No, I think we have definitely lost him a second time. Well, excuse the technical difficulties.
I got kicked too. I'm back.
It's all good. We will resume as soon as we get They Lie Ohio back. Maybe actually, Karlee, because we were going to go on to you next. We'll resume the lunar wave footage when we get They Lie Ohio back. But can you tell us a little bit about auroras? We'll start with that one word, and I'm sure you'll know where I'm going.
Well, actually, and I can talk a little bit about the auroras. I don't know that much, but I did one video on them. But can I talk about another theory, because it kind of goes hands in hand with what Stephen's talking about, the moon. Do you mind if I talk about that real quick?
Feel free, talk about whatever you like.
Okay, so I'll try to go over it quickly, but I have a theory. After talking with Robert Shortman several months ago, who was a plumber from Antarctica, while he was working there for 13 months, that he realized that that Antarctica ice is the purest, freshest water he's ever been around, and that it's known to be this extremely fresh, clean, pure water, not salt water, it's fresh water. And my gears started moving in my head, and I started thinking, because I have talked about before about, the sun, of course, is very hot light, and that the moon produces its own light. And there are many studies and tests out there that suggest that the moon creates a cooling light. And like I said, Stephen, earlier, that some people suggest that the moon is literally there as the lesser light that keeps the sun from overheating, so they balance each other out. But while they're on their circuit, if we do indeed have some kind of enclosed firmament dome, I know not everybody agrees with that, and just because I talk about this and I believe that Earth acts like a terrarium doesn't mean that I don't believe that there's land that we haven't discovered. As the sun and the moon cycle, they would be creating condensation, like you're talking about, Stephen, that might be causing the weather. However, what if that condensation is accumulating on the inside of this firmament walls? So, and it would change now with your theory, because when the moon is waxing and or waning, then the temperature is changing. So you would get more condensation, you would get less condensation. As that condensation builds up and it starts running down the inside of this domed, where it collects is going to be the outer rim of what we know of Earth right now, the Earth plane, which is Antarctica. And then it's freezing as this clean, fresh, pure water. And the video that I talk about that in is, I talk about Earth being a giant water distiller, because it's literally just evaporating water and condensing it. It's running down the walls of the firmament and then freezing, and that's how it's creating its own barrier for the oceans, which is Antarctica.
Right.
And that's why the water is so fresh. And then part of that theory also is that, and this is where your theory might come into play. I was talking about meteor showers, because when the water runs down, we always see meteor showers go down. You know, they're shooting down. We call them shooting stars. What if they're not really stars or anything like that? What if they're literally just giant droplets of water running down the firmament walls? As they run down the walls, they're vibrating, which can create something called which that water can create a little spark of light and then fizzle out. But then I started thinking, like, how in the world are we able to predict that? Well, if what you're saying is correct with the moon changing the temperature, then there would be a little bit of a way that that can be predicted. You know, because then they would know if there's going to be more condensation on the wall of the inside of the firmament, then there's a better chance of us having a larger meteor shower that that we can predict and see.
In a certain location too.
Exactly.
Sorry, what? Say that again, Stephen. I didn't catch that.
In a certain location too, if she's right.
So when you were talking about that earlier, I was like, I can't wait to say my little piece, and I can talk about the auroras maybe if I get a chance after that. that was part of my theory I've been talking about for a while, but that might go hand in hand with your sun and moon theory.
Yeah, did you guys remember seeing this this footage of high altitude footage of sprites that were captured? Do you guys remember that?
Sure, I've seen loads of those. They're cool as hell.
Do you think any of that might play into this theory, Stephen's theory?
I think there's multiple things going on, honestly. When it comes to the water distillation near the edge of the dome, I mean, if there is a dome, that sounds totally plausible. I mean, like actually, like almost like a undeniability. You know what I mean? But to me, like, how would the water get higher than a certain point? You know what I mean? It's like I don't know, like 150 something thousand feet. There's nothing up there. Like maybe you know, in the space between 150,000 feet where there is water, you know what I mean? So.
But then there's a lot of theories out there that once you get so far that things change into more of a liquid state.
Oh, right.
You know, and that's sometimes why we see things like the lunar wave. Or I have a theory about lunar eclipses, not solar eclipses, but lunar eclipses that have to do with vortices in water creating perfect circular shadows that would make sense when they move across the moon, especially since they kind of roll in and roll out. They don't just go like in a straight line. Yeah, anyway, if space that we know of, space is more of like a liquid type of matter, whatever you want to call it, then medium. Yep, that's the word.
Yeah,
that could still make sense.
Enclosed terrarium. It's cool.
Yeah. But I still believe that there could be land that we don't know of, and it still doesn't mean we couldn't get out in different ways. I know Mark Sargent the other day was talking about getting in and out, and I've said the same thing. What if the way out is through, like, Mount Miro and it's through water, like a moon pool, which would also cause, if there are moon pools that we can get in and out outside of the Antarctic ice wall, the Earth would literally breathe in and out if we had areas like that, and that could cause things like the tides.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But Karlee, I'd like to hear more about your idea with you said like shadow vortices. I'm not understanding.
Well, I have a short video on my channel that talks about, there's this girl, I think her name is physicist girl or something like that, I forget. And she does this experiment where she takes a plate and she just waves it through a pool. Now you need a source of light and water. And when she moves the wave through the pool, it creates vortices like a loop. But all you see, the shadow in the bottom of the pool, is two perfect circles traveling on the bottom of the pool. And they just spin. It's actually the ends of a loop, because the only way you can see is a loop. She puts like food dye in it, and you can see that they loop together. They look like a slinky under the water. But those two ends that are circles travel from one end of the pool to the other, and they're just perfect circular shadows. When I videotaped, well, not videotaped, I'm sorry, I tried to get photos of the blood moon eclipse in September of 2015. And when I watched it happen, it literally looked like whatever that shadow was, it rolled in from a certain direction and then rolled out a different direction. Whatever it was moving in front of that wasn't moving in this. It just didn't make any sense that it was Earth's shadow. You know, it was not, it didn't make sense. It didn't look right. And
Yeah.
with the vortices shadows, they're also opaque. So something like that would make sense going in front of the moon. I don't know, it's just thoughts. Plus, the moon, it didn't really turn that red, but when it does turn red, usually that means that there's more like atmospheric lensing, which means there's more water involved. It all goes back to there being water type substance up there.
Can anyone explain atmospheric lensing to me? Because I'm still not sure about that. Does it have a lot to do with moisture? What is atmospheric lensing exactly?
As far as I know, yeah, it's just the water in the air can change the coloring or distort also shape. So when you see like the sun, I like to say exiting your line of vision instead of setting, like it's moving away. And sometimes it ends up looking more like an oblate spheroid. Sorry to use that term, but it like flattens out in the middle because it's almost like when you see a mirage and it's like wavy lines from water, that's just spreading things out and it's distorting its shape and distorting its color. But also other things in the air like pollution and things like that can change the coloring as well.
But that's a nice segue actually, because when I've shared the video that I'm going to play in a minute, actually I'll start sharing it while I say this. People have said, oh, that's just atmospheric distortion that you're seeing. And people aren't actually seeing what's being presented. In other words, they can't see the wave that's actually on the video because they're paying attention to the atmospheric distortions, if that makes sense. But yeah, we've got Delia back with us now. So if I click play, maybe you can do a better job than I of explaining exactly what I've just said there.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, yeah, this I don't know if you guys can see the lunar wave or not here. Can you, or can you see it, Stephen?
Yeah, I watched this on your channel. I saw it.
Yeah. What happened is you can see the atmospheric disturbance and everything, and it's always going on. But I was looking directly at the point the wave started at, and in there I would have never noticed it because of all the atmospheric disturbance. And this happens all the time with the moon, especially on hot nights or anything like that. But I just so happened to be looking at that point and the wave started for one of these. You're excited as hell when it happens because you've been waiting for years for it, and finally it's happening to me. To make sure, please let me get all my equipment right, because you don't want to lose this. And it started and I made sure, okay, I'm recording, everything's great. And Crow will tell you always let your video play through. Don't stop it no matter what. So I let it play through, and after I watched it, after I captured it, it takes 42 seconds for the wave to cross. Now, usually the wave is very quick. What this tells us is that they come in different speeds. We actually have the lunar wave here that is going slow. You can study it. You can, it's just not the same wave that we're used to. So I looked at other waves and they are different timed. For instance, this wave is closer together and it takes 42 seconds to transit the moon. It takes 10 seconds, and then Chris Parker has one, it takes only 3 seconds. So the only thing I can come up with is a sonic boom. If you study a sonic boom, they like this, except in quote unquote Earth's atmosphere, okay? So whatever's going on up there, this wave, the sonic boom, is going away from the moon. And why I say that is it's going slow. If a speedboat was shooting towards you on a lake, coming towards you will go quicker than the wave leaving the boat behind. So whatever happened here, whatever caused this wave from the moon, is what me and Crow have talked about. It's going away from the moon because of the speed of it. And that's what we've come up with so far. If there's sonic booms or something in space, we don't know. I mean, for a year now, and I can't figure it out. There in space, and sound doesn't travel in space. What's causing this? So that's why my scope's on the moon. Every night I can get it on there to try to catch different. It's an amazing thing. Here it is, 2012, when Crow captured his. And you're telling me we've kept track of the moon all these years, and this is just getting discovered in 2012? They have had to know about this. But NASA is quiet on it. Whatever's going on up there, they're quiet about this.
I don't know. Crow is pretty vigilant. He might have been the first.
I think he was.
I mean, that it might be the first to document it, but it's absolutely certain they're looking at the moon a lot. So it's been seen a lot before it's been publicized.
And I think technology is catching up to NASA is what's going on here. Everybody can film everything today. And they are being discovered is what's happening. This is just my opinion, but I believe everybody with good telescopes, camera, we're able to find things out that we couldn't 20 years ago. And I think they're trying to shift now, dodge the bullet. You know, how do they get out of this? How do they keep us from discovering these things? What excuses can they come up with? What's going on? You know, things to my telescope that I never thought existed. There's no way it could happen. I mean, and they're denying it's happening. And Deja Vu just discovered something in the sky, and he hasn't released it yet. I'm not going to say any more than that, but when he does, it's pretty shocking what he's discovered, you know, and now I'm searching for that. It's one thing after another, you know.
Sorry, VB. Like with Stephen, you're another example of literally just doing it. It's amazing to watch it happen. It brings a really big smile to my face. But I watched your video, I think it was today that you put it out, and you were saying, you were making a channel recommendation, that's right. And you were saying, this guy's the same as me. He's more interested in getting his equipment right and getting the captures than making a really nicely edited video. And at the moment, that might be the case. With time, I know your videos will get better. I mean, if I can offer you any help at all, great. But that's it, exactly it. You're getting the equipment down, you're getting used to it, and you're capturing stuff. It's before we move off the lunar wave, I'll stress this to anybody who's watching who just goes, I couldn't see it. It took me quite a few watches to actually see the lunar wave on that one. But when I did, my jaw hit the floor as you track it across. It's, as They Lie, Ohio says, a very, very slow transit, but it does the same pattern as every other lunar wave. You've got one wave followed by another wave, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. So there's a few other people that have taken They Lie, Ohio's footage and put nice little arrows in, zoomed in so you can see it easier and things like that. So study it at your leisure, but it is an amazing capture. Now that I've seen it and studied it and can see the lunar wave clear through the atmospheric distortions, that is probably all most people will see and just write it off for. Once you actually do see it, for me, it's probably the most amazing of all of them because it's so slow and you can really watch it transit. Whereas with a lot of them, they're over in a split second. It's like a hum bar just flicking across the screen, which isn't the same as the one that They Lie, Ohio has captured. So I will put a link to that video, but as I say, there's a whole bunch of them. I think even Crow has documented it and talked about it quite a lot as well. So, you know, have a check out of that. But I'll put a link to They Lie, Ohio's video, the one that just played out, so you can actually subscribe to his channel and hopefully see some of the streaming that he's been doing. I know you've just done a hangout and started to stream stuff as well. So it's wonderful to see people doing things. You know, I'm sure you'll all agree on the panel that it's nice to actually just get out there and get your hands dirty and do stuff. For me, it's been a bit more on the social level. For people like They Lie, Ohio and Stephen Chess, it's been more about actually just making the physical observations in your everyday life. And these things are profound when you find them. It's amazing and it's empowering. So I hope everybody watching can embrace the spirit of They Lie, Ohio and Stephen Chess and countless others in the flat earth community who are taking it upon themselves to not do anything particularly extraordinary, but at the same time it is extraordinary to just say, no, I'm not going to just accept what I'm told about these things. I'm going to go and have a little look. And that's not hurting anybody. I think it's wonderful. So yeah, my hat is off to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your streams and what you've got coming up, please, Dalai, Ohio?
Yeah, I've bought some new equipment, and it's just going to get tougher for me. The cameras are more powerful, and I'm messing with the streaming and everything like that, and it makes it. I'm trying to learn so much at once, but I think the footage will be awesome once I get it going. CD, Take Back Space has a awesome format he goes by there, but his channel's getting really big. But I'd like to say this: all the small channels out there like me and Deja Vu and Good Times for All, we need a big format for people to see our footage, not for subs or anything, but to get the information out there. Nathan, you got like 3,000-4,000 subs, I believe. Well, needs to get as to many people as possible, and us little guys doing the groundwork, we need the big guys like you to get the information out to people, and it'll encourage people to go buy a P900 or go buy a telescope. Get out there and film. You will be amazed at what you can see. You'll be amazed at what they're doing behind our backs with chemtrails, everything. And it's that skeptics, if they get their hands on and do it, they won't be skeptics no more. Before you knock this flat earth thing, anybody out there listening, hold on a minute. You know how much we've learned out of just in the 2 years studying flat earth? I mean, I have captured so much stuff just because of the flat earth topic. Whether the earth is flat, round, whatever it is, it's bringing forth information that our government's hiding from us that we all should know about. And that's why I appreciate Nathan Oakley and people like that. Bigger channels for us small channels to get the information out there.
Yeah, I mean, size is irrelevant to me. It's more about that moment when you go, whoa. And you've got that on your channel in spades. So it's not necessarily about me wanting to promote the little guy. It's more about I want other people to share in that little moment when you go, wow, that's so cool. And, I had it the other day with Stephen Chess. Karlee Sunshine can attest to this. I'm sure you get plenty of nice comments about your videos and the information that you give across to people. But you have it yourself as well. When you come across this information, you feel compelled to share it. And why not? Why not? I can't remember who it was recently that said, yeah, we should do this more. We should share each other's channels. I think it was at the end yesterday. Helioskeptic said, that was it. We should bolster each other's popularity. We should promote each other. We should say, yeah, definitely subscribe to Dalai Ohio. Definitely subscribe to Karlee Sunshine. Stephen Chess, his Stefan Molyneux debate has just hit 1 million views. That is a lot of eyeballs to hear a lot of really superb flat earth argument going on. That's amazing. And without people talking about this stuff, who's going to hear about it? So why not shout it from the rooftops? What we have had, I hope we've moved past this now, is a lot of vitriol against flat earthers, a lot of infighting. And Mark Sargent describes it as like the army that's being held back. You're going to have a few of the guards or the soldiers fighting amongst themselves, waiting for the battle to begin. And that's maybe what we've got. But I hope we'll move past that and just shout it from the rooftops. We've been lied to. The earth's flat. That's a big deal. There's loads of other deceptions that come off the back of that. And me personally, I want to shout it from the rooftops. And the people who are doing the groundwork, the people who are actually finding real information, non-propagandized, non-government based, not spoon-fed to me by Big Brother that I should just accept and be slapped down by globe heads if I don't. Real research. That's wonderful. Nice time to live, man. I'm so chuffed to be alive. It's great.
Yeah. Can I jump in here? I feel it's really great that you brought Dalai Ohio in here to talk about the lunar wave alongside what Stephen Chess is talking about, because they seem to interplay quite well. I was thinking, just sitting here thinking about it, I kind of got like a two-part idea or question. I don't know if I could call it a question really, but so if the observer on the Earth is point A and the surface of the moon is point B, at what point between these 2 points do you think that this lunar wave is occurring in the air? And also, do you think it has to do with the moisture and the temperature, like the issues that Stephen was bringing up, and how they interplay?
You mind, Steve? If the wave is captured in two different spots, for instance, I'm in Ohio, and if it's also seen the same wave in California at the exact same time, that's telling us that that wave is closer to the moon than it is to Earth. It was captured, I believe, in North Carolina at the same time it was captured in Tucson. I want to say, don't quote me on that. But the problem here is the gentleman recorder off. He saw the wave, he had it, they both talked to each other, and he didn't record it. The gentleman in North Carolina, which is Chris Parker, did record it. That tells us the lunar wave is closer to the surface of the moon than it is Earth, or you wouldn't observe it from both those locations.
Yeah, it's like independent from local weather that's going on, local humidity factor that's going on.
Ohio.
Right, and that's a. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, have you ever witnessed the lunar wave, or I think it looks like a pulse, the lunar pulse? Have you ever seen it when the moon was more of its waxing or waning or into the crescent phases? Or has it always been when it's closer to being full?
It's usually closer to the equinox, is what Crow 777 has come up with. Okay, now I personally was on live chat, and he never captured the wave. And about 10 minutes of me being in the chat talking to him, he captured it. Later, he captured it again.
Wow.
I didn't capture it. It took me hundreds and hundreds of hours. I mean, I was so frustrated. I started thinking, okay, this might be fake. And then it happened for me. And now there's nothing more aggravating when someone goes, that's fake. I mean, John LeBon just the other day, on a hangout. I think it was VB's hangout. He was calling me a hoaxer. He said I faked it with a mirror and all this. And I have to ignore it.
Yeah, just ignore it. Yep.
Right. All right. I used to think, hey, this could be fake. And then finally it happened for me. I live a post-wave life now, you could say, I guess. And it's real, whatever it is, and there's definitely more research needed. And by NASA not saying anything makes it more devious, or whatever they're doing, or whatever it is. I mean, I'm sorry, I was rambling, but it seems to happen any time. We don't know when. It's unpredictable now because they're being captured in full. A full moon will be the hardest time to see the lunar wave because there's no definition of the moon, and my moon was 3/4 full, and you could barely see it. So imagine a bright full moon. The only way you'll be able to see it is to look at the edge of the moon. You'll see the ripple go up, and I do believe CD has captured it surface of the moon, and then you don't see it in space. That's another question we have. Is this only on the surface of the moon, or does the wave continue through space? We don't know that yet.
That was another question I had. Like when we have like Mars or Venus where they're getting closer and closer to the moon and people get pictures where they're transiting, that would be incredible it would have to be timing, have to be 100% perfect, but to capture a lunar wave and then see it actually make the light from that planet, I don't want to say planet, luminary, that wandering luminary ripple, then you know that it's going out past the moon.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Even more questions.
Awesome?
Yeah, it would be awesome, incredible.
To be the guy to capture the Jupiter wave.
Yeah.
That would take some serious resources, though.
Right?
Serious.
Yeah.
Think about filming the sun and it happened. You catch a sun wave, or this could. What is it? Where is it? And
there's times I've seen people record. They're videotaping the sun, and there's those sunspots, the little dark spots on the sun, but they're never in the same spot, and sometimes there's 4 of them, sometimes there's 1. And I've often thought, like, what if those are just stars or the wandering luminaries transiting in front of the sun, and that's what we're seeing. But I think it would be so bright that it would just completely block them out. So I don't know. But like, what are those things on the sun when people videotape it?
Well, Good Times for All he's a small channel out there. He's a friend of mine. We chat all the time about we try to keep tabs. All of us people tracking the wave, the sun, and all that. We talk to each other. We stay in communication. Cosmic Surfer, Chris Van Matter, which helped with Globebusters. We all stay in contact with each other. And Good Times for All and Chris Van Matter's been fun guys. They're on that, and that's a question, I'd have to leave for them. That's right, but they do great work.
I was just going to say this for some of the audience, this might be quite scary because you'll see pictures of your scope. Certainly, Bob's got a Me, doesn't he? I mean, you've got some amazing equipment, CD with his equipment. If you ran down the list, it would terrify people. And it's not necessarily about that, because for me, I mean, I've got a scope as well, but I remember a TV series, and Jonathan Ross had a famous astronomer, I think it might have even been Patrick Moore, come over to his house, and he was trying to explain to him that he was having trouble using his telescope. So he says, well, show it me. And they go out into the backyard, and he's got this beautiful building that's built with his scope inside it. Wonderful setup, absolutely amazing, best you could ever want. And the first thing he did was say, nah, forget it. Took him outside and just started to get him familiarized with the constellations and the planets and where it is and what it is with the naked eye. In other words, he was just out there on a clear night going, let's just have a look at it. And most people don't. They won't go to the extent of cricking their neck and just standing there for, God, heaven forbid, an hour and watching what actually happens. It's a long lost art of stillness and just observation. Most people won't do that. They want the quick fix. They want to go to the telescope. I can imagine somebody watching this and going, that sounds amazing, man. I'm going to go and catch the lunar wave. They go out and buy their first scope. They point it up in the sky and can't see a damn thing. Immediately frustrated. I'm sure you've had those moments.
Yeah, it can get frustrating, especially if you're trying to.
Yeah, if you've got a purpose, I compliment, you mentioned Take Back Space or Chris D, and whenever I watch his shows, I'm in awe, because when I use my scope, it'll take me a long time to get something into my field of view, and then quickly it'll drift out of view, and then you get frustrated, and then you line it back up again. I'll go into his chat room and say, let's have a quick look at Orion. He's there. It takes him about split second, and he's like, yeah, you just get used to it. I'm like, wow, it'd take me an hour to do that. But for him, it's instantaneous. And I recommend everybody, go to these channels, They Lie Ohio, Take Back Space. You've rattled off the list yourself, but have a look, because these people are putting in the graft for you. It's you can be an armchair viewer and see some amazing things. It's certainly in the case of some of the channels, they're getting pretty close to what you can achieve yourself in terms of resolution. Chris D has exceeded what I can do with my scope now. It's phenomenal. It doesn't have the same mystique. It doesn't quite have the same magic as looking down your own lens, but he's putting it out there, and you can really see. It is absolutely representative of what you would get if you were really good at it with a scope. But yeah, so check out these channels.
Amazing thing to not know is we can't see anything out there. Everything is by feel. We're feeling the camera buttons. We're feeling everything on the telescope. Memory, and it takes a long time to learn all that. And then if you buy a new camera, the process starts all over again, because the buttons are in different spots and all that. So when I set up out there and I have new equipment, it's all by feel, and a lot of people don't realize that. And then our equipment gets hot, so we actually cool it down with ice packs, because these cameras were never designed to do this. We're taking these things to a whole new limit, and it's pretty awesome. I can't wait till they start building things just for us, so we don't have to do all this. But a lot of people don't know that. I thought I'd throw it out there.
No, I did. I absolutely love that. That's one of the things that I love. The technical, it's geeky as all frig, but that's fine. It's so skookum that what you guys are doing with it. Like you say, you're pushing the boundaries of what this equipment's not even designed to do it in some instances, and you're jerry-rigging it, fudging it, fiddling it, and then the results are there for you to all see. You know, it's the end result that like that piece of footage where you can just go, wow, you know, that makes it all worth it. But as you said earlier, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of setting up, fiddling, getting nothing, frustration, cold. You know, it's annoying. It's tedious a lot of the time. It's like an airline pilot. It's endless hours of boredom punctuated with the most exhilarating and exciting moments imaginable.
Yeah, if anything, I'd just like to see Ohio go for, you know, like 3-4 hours or something like that, because the one that you did, it was about an hour long, I think, right?
Yeah, I forgot my ice packs and my camera overheated and shut off. It shuts off, you know, automatically to protect it from being damaged.
Yeah.
It was my fault, my rookie mistake. You know, I haven't streamed and, you know, through the whole winter. I'm out of practice. I'll get back into it. But
yeah.
you know, I like to go ahead.
Well, yeah, like just getting back to what Nathan said earlier, he said, you know, it's not extraordinary, but it's definitely an extraordinary. I mean, like to set up all that equipment, to know what you're doing, to take the time out of your day, out of your life to come set this up and put it on YouTube for all of us to see. That is a very big deal. It's very
rewarding to me. Trust me.
Yeah, I applaud you. I applaud you for what you do, Ohio, because I don't have the capability to videotape like that, but I have sat out there and done photography just of the moon. And like what you guys were mentioning earlier, sometimes it's not the best weather. Sometimes it's freezing cold and you're struggling. And then you're out there trying to find all these buttons with cold fingers, you know, you can't wear gloves. And then even just, you probably struggle not even just with your camera overheating, but coming from the temperature inside to outside probably changes it. I mean, do you have to let it sit out there for a while to acclimate to the temperature? And there's a lot that goes into it. So I just applaud you and for giving us that video and that view that we can't get on our own.
Well, thanks, Karlee. What we do is we set the scope out an hour early, let it acclimate to the temperature. And then the dangerous part is bringing it back into the warm house if it's cold out, because once moisture sets in on a telescope, you will never get it out of there. You'll have to take it apart and you're looking at trouble. So when it comes wintertime, I pack my stuff up and I'm done because I don't want a chance tearing my equipment up.
Right.
Yeah, the lenses, all this equipment is just like musical equipment, you know, like you ever seen a high school band playing at a football game in the wintertime and everyone seems like they're out of tune with each other. It's the same thing. The instruments are flexing, you know, just like a telescope would. Yeah.
There's an image that you use on your avatar of a plane transiting the moon, and I've seen that through my scope. And I just about wet myself when it happened to me because the plane was banked the opposite way. So you've got the windows away. And when it happened for me, and we're talking, you know, fractions of a second, but when I saw it, it was one of those things that, again, I put to the back of my mind at the time, but it was in focus. And I was like, afterwards, scratching my head, going, why could I see? It felt like I could see the people in the windows. That's how detailed it was. You know, that's the image that I have in my mind. I'm sure it wasn't, but that's what I tell myself because it was all perfect. There you go. If you turn your camera off, I'll put your avatar up. If you do that again, you just turned off your camera for a second there, like there you go. So that's an awesome shot. But you get moments like that when you're looking through, you know, your scope. You get moments like that, and they are exhilarating to experience, and it's worth the fuss. It's worth the faff to get that. I know that's just one shot, and it's nothing by comparison to things like a lunar wave when your objective isn't to catch that, I'm sure, but it's nice when you do because it looks cool.
But that's an incredible photo, and I know other people are going to say this too. But how is it that the jet is in focus and so is the moon behind it if it's really 238,000 miles away? You know, when you're talking about focusing in on something with a camera, that should be a huge difference, and they both should not be in focus.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I mentioned in one of my shows a long time once ago. Like,
Yeah.
we can look at the moon with our bare eyes and see all this crystal clear definition on some nights, but then I can look out, to the, I guess, to the west and look at my downtown buildings, and they're just blurs. So it can be really confusing.
Yeah, that picture there, actually, I got lucky on that thing. I was letting my camera cool down, and I turned record off, and I was looking at my monitor, and a jet flew right through it, and I missed it, and I couldn't believe it. So I'm looking off in a horizon, and here comes another one, and I thought, what are the odds of that crossing again? And here it come. I turned record on, and boom, nailed it. A perfect shot. But to answer your question about the focusing part, anything beyond every scope is different. It depends on the magnification. Everything beyond so many miles is in focus to infinity. So for instance, if that jet was a mile closer, it probably would have been blurry. That jet there is probably about 4 miles from me. So my in focus point to infinity is 3 miles. Anything from 3 miles beyond is in focus. So what that tells you also is if anytime something black crosses my screen, it's not a bird. Bird could not be seen that far away if it's in focus. Birds will always be blurry. Birds will always be blurry. So anytime you see a black dot that's in focus, it's not a bird. It's something else.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. Makes sense. But then I have a question. Have you ever seen anything, bugs, that you didn't think was a plane that went in front of the moon?
Yep. Right now, we are chasing down these objects, and they are donut shaped, they are transparent, and they avoid each other. The only way I can describe it is it's a transparent donut, and if they are headed towards each other, one will dart out of the way to avoid the one coming towards it. So it's intelligence, whatever it is, and we have always been filming these, but we never looked for them. They've always been right there in front of our face, and now we know what to look for. We can see them, and they are cloaked, I guess you could say. Whatever it is, whatever's going on up there, it's not bugs, birds, or anything like that.
Interesting stuff.
That's fascinating. There's so much about Earth that we just don't understand quite yet. There's so much up there that we don't know about, but we're changing history. It's incredible.
Right. Now that I've said that, anybody that owns a scope, look for these things. You'll have to have a solid background. I'm making quotation marks, the moon, and you'll have to have something behind them, and you'll see them if you start looking for them. Whatever they are, we don't know. There's a couple of us that are looking for them now. Crow 777 has some, and he's got great videos of them, and then you'll know what you're looking for.
Maybe you can tell us about another phenomenon then, Karlee. We've mentioned it a couple of times about the auroras, and I know you made a video about this. So,
yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a video pretty recently, and I was just kind of researching a little bit on magnetics, and as I went into researching, I started finding some experiments, and I didn't do the experiments myself. I did not have the ability to do that. Although in the future, that might be something that I recreate. But I was looking into plasma, electromagnetics, things like that, trying to figure out an explanation on the fact that we have the Aurora borealis, which is in the north and by the Arctic. But then there are also people that witness something like the northern lights in the south. And I, in the video, I just kind of show the Aurora borealis because it's just so beautiful. And then there's people working with these things called neodymium magnets. So what it is there's a round, like a donut-shaped magnet with a stainless steel rod down the middle. And of course, when they put electrical charge to it, the pattern that it creates, I was just kind of comparing it because it looked very similar to the wavy electrical pattern that we see go through the sky whenever we witness the aurora borealis. But then I got into the research a little bit deeper, and there's a gentleman that recreates this. He literally has a magnetic ring along the outside under a dome, although he calls it a sphere, which it's not. It's under a dome filled with plasma, and then a steel rod in the middle. And when he electrically charges this, as I go through the video, I kind of start labeling the different things that I'm seeing and comparing them to what we see on Earth. Like when he turns the charge on, the middle would be the Arctic or the North Pole. The outside ring is Antarctica. The plasma changes a very beautiful bluish purple color, kind of reminds you of the sky. And then there's every once in a while there's a little bit of sparks and electrical waves coming from the middle that looks like the Aurora Borealis, which is the northern lights.
Sorry,
and then
maybe I've lost track, because you've got this neodymium magnet with a
yes.
It's a donut shape with a pole running through, and
yes.
Where do we go from? I'm just lost from there. Where do we get to it looking like the auroras, the Aurora Australis or Borealis?
Well, and I'm sorry I can't share the video because I don't have a way to do that because I'm just on my phone. But he puts electrical charge to this, and there's plasma on the inside of this dome that's covering all of this. Now, he calls it a sphere, but what I'm saying is it literally looks like a dome. And when he electrically charges this magnet plus the steel rod in the middle of the magnet, we're seeing things that resemble the northern lights, and also what might be resembling what people see when they see the Aurora Australis, which is the lights. It's like a northern light, but it's in Antarctica. And then there's also one spot that is concentrated light that looks like the sun. And when he takes another magnet to affect that concentration of the light in the plasma and he flips polarities, the sun disappears and comes back, or the light disappears and comes back, and it mimics what I was thinking of, like a solar eclipse. So I'm just kind of taking this experiment and trying to compare it to, could this possibly be some of the mechanics that we see with what creates the light in the sun, and also what is causing the Aurora Borealis and the Aurora Australis that we see? Because a lot of people say, well, the northern lights make sense, but it doesn't make sense to have something like that in Antarctica, because like that's their reasoning. But I think it makes total sense, especially if, I mean, I have no way to prove this, but if we are running on electromagnetism, and instead of me just saying that the sun and the moon are working as electromagnets, it's Earth itself being a giant, the outer ring being a giant magnet, and then the North Pole, of course, being magnetic.
Karlee, how long have you been working with us?
That I've only just did that video maybe a month ago.
So you've been doing this for over a month, or?
Just that part of that video and that research was maybe, I just did it about a month ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's pretty neat.
And I was surprised because last Sunday, Globebusters a couple times in the background during their show, and I was almost like a little starstruck. It was kind of neat that they showed my video in the background. But it's just kind of a beginning. It was just, I think the video itself is maybe like 15 or 18 minutes long, but it's something that I can just keep building onto. And like what a couple of you guys had said earlier, is that you are encouraging others to go get a telescope, go get a camera, go out and do these observations and experiments on your own. And that's what I do too. But when I make a video, add to it, and hopefully someone else can use that as well. It's just mine, and I need to get it out there. Like if you're a writer, you need to write it down, you know? So if someone else can be inspired by that and add to it, and it makes sense, kind of like tonight with Stephen's theory about the changing of temperatures because of with the moon phasing, and also the lunar wave. Like, we can just keep adding to these theories when things make sense, you know? So it's just kind of the beginning of trying to explain what the aurora borealis is and the aurora australis, but I might be able to go somewhere more with it in the future.
Bob, or Mr. from Globebusters in the chat, says, great video, Karlee. So he's really appreciative.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, Karlee, I'm sorry, VB, go ahead.
All this talk of the aurora borealis and events in the sky makes me wonder how the jet stream might play into both Karlee's and Stephen's ideas here. The jet stream.
Well, I actually have created, I know everyone doesn't agree with the azimuthal equidistant projections as far as being maps, and I agree, but I've created, I think it's over 55 of those azimuthal equidistant projections just to look for patterns on Earth, and one of them that I created was with the jet streams. I mean, they go and it looks like they're going in a perfect circle, kind of, and it makes sense with the sun and the moon cycling on a circuit. But it could have something to do with it for sure.
Hey, Karlee.
Yes.
Bob showed my video about 2 weeks ago on Globebusters, and I was starstruck too.
Yeah.
As soon as they showed it, I signed my name on a piece of paper and handed it to my girlfriend. I go, "Here's my autograph, baby."
Yeah, my fiance is always like, "You're gonna be famous." He's just teasing. I'm like, no, I don't want to be famous. I just thought it was neat. But yeah, I'm a humble page, so it's nice to get some of your work out there. Same as you guys said earlier, it's nice that if you feel like you have a good theory going or a good observation, you want to share it with other people, because if it resonates with them or helps their thought process, then that's why we want to get it out there, you know?
No, it is cool. I mean, Dave Weiss did a little mirror from my interview with Infinite Plane Society, and Bob played it at the beginning of Globebusters, and I was calling my family because they let me know in advance. And I was nearly wetting myself. It was amazing, you know, and I'm not ashamed to say it. That was so cool. And
yeah,
you know, I'm not going to lie, it really benefited me. I gained loads of subscribers, you know, 10 at least, from Bob going out of his way to promote me, little old me. I was like, wow, thank you so much.
Yep.
You know, to all the people at Globebusters, thank you. And it's the same for everybody that gets their video played on Globebusters. I'm sure they see it and go, hey, it's me, Globebusters. Wow.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
I mean, I was going to bring Validation Boy here because you mentioned something about when people presumably are saying that it could only possibly be a globe because of the Aurora Australis, if I could say it. Therefore, it's a globe. I'm not even going to put in the in-between bit. But you deal with this all the time, VB. How do you approach it when people use these presuppositional arguments and just automatically go to, well, it must be a globe because of that?
Well, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, people probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but, you know, I believe the sky and the ground are, you know, independent from one another. I believe these two things are disconnected, and I don't really like to use any evidence from the sky to prove the shape of the ground. That includes dog cam footage, and technically that includes any of this talk about the lunar wave and really all the stuff that we're discussing on this panel. I'll definitely entertain the ideas and see what the ideas contribute, but from, you know, what I call flat earth dogmatism standpoint, you know, these things are phenomena in the sky. They're completely independent from us. We don't really know what they're comprised of. We don't know their composition. Therefore, we can't say exactly what they are. Therefore, we can't say exactly how they are functioning. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you're going to hate me now because of something that Stephen Chess said earlier, which was to do with the Foucault pendulum, which is to say that it does have interactions here on the ground with things that are happening up in the sky. So I agree with you. It's a stance that you can take because of the presuppositional arguments that they come up with. But, and I'm sure with Bob in the chat, he'll agree with me, they are connected. Things that happen on the ground do definitely have an effect on the things in the sky. They are, I don't know, would I be so bold to say they're causally linked? Yeah. I think they are. If we were to use this as a giant magnet in the model that is what Karlee detailed earlier, what is having an effect on the visual if you were on that level, if you were in that light bulb, if you were in that plasma filled light bulb that was described by Karlee earlier, and you've got your neodymium donut magnet with a pole in the middle, and you're somewhere along that plane, that person who looks up and sees what's happening to that plasma is most definitely seeing a cause and effect relationship between the ground and the sky. So it's one where I can't really just let it slide. It's great to have you on my side when Tim Osmond's in the other corner, because it's absolutely the case that when we're talking to globe heads, they do use presuppositional arguments. But we're now in an arena where we can say, well, let's have a look at what's going on with the sky, which is why I brought you onto this chat. So that, I know you take that stance, but by the same token, you're having this conversation with us as a very rational and reasonable person. You presumably realize that they're part of our day-to-day lives anyway. And I want you to make that clear as well, if that makes sense, BB.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. But also, if you think about it now, to suggest that things are not independent these two things are not independent from one another, you're going to have to kind of bring forth a model then. Right?
Sure, man. That's why I use Karlee's.
Yeah. And I mean, inherently, I think you'd have to propose a model at that point, because you can't just say these things are affecting these things. Well, then how? I mean, like, where are the parameters? Where's the dome end? Is there a dome? Is there not a dome? Are we inside of a celestial sphere? Is it a flat disk inside of a half dome? Is it a flat disk inside of a full dome that goes around us? Are we on a globe? Are we on a convex lens, concave, Lord Stephen Christ, all that stuff.
Can I jump in here?
You mind if I say something first?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, whoever's got the strongest voice.
I hear what you're saying about not like relating the shape of the Earth to things in the sky, but there's certainly a connection. Well, and then shit. You go ahead. I forgot.
I'm with VB on this. I think the sky does matter, but I don't think it has what's going on down here. I proved it to myself on Stellarium. The star trails are moving in two separate directions. Southwest, they're spinning clockwise. Looking west, northwest, they're spinning counterclockwise. That couldn't possibly happen on a spinning ball. Kofu 72 took his camera and proved Stellarium is correct. That's what's going on. The stars, the moon, the sun is doing what the stars, the moon, and sun do. And us doing their own thing. We have no control over it, and they have no control over us. The only thing the sun is doing is giving us heat and sunshine. That's it.
See, it makes me think that the sun and the Aurora borealis and the moon are inside of our, basically, what would have to inherently, I don't know about inherently, but I would have to assume that is an enclosed system, because of everything that you were just saying. And that outside of the enclosure is where these lights are, or they're either at the edge of where the enclosure is, or they're just right outside of it.
Right. I'm just saying they have no effect on us. None. I mean, the sky does what the sky does. For instance, a globe head, which you guys I call them too, will tell you, no, look, these stars in the southern hemisphere spin this way, and that proves a ball. That doesn't prove anything. If I can see this affect Northern America from Ohio, that blows their proof right out the window. They can no longer use that against me. I will show them my video, and I'll take them to Kofu 72, and that will show them that that argument they have is irrelevant anymore. They can't use it anymore.
Powerful statements. I absolutely love it. I can see your mic flickering away, Stephen. Did you have something to add to that?
No, not really. I don't agree with everything,
Well, let me repeat it back for you, Stephen. So I want to get your take on it. I said that all of this stuff that Karlee and Ohio have been talking about suggests that we would have to put forth a model.
Well, that's what I was going to say before. I don't agree with that. It's like I don't have to do anything. I can bring forward the information I want, and then I can leave it there. It's like it's for people to figure out on their own. I figured out what I figured out. It's an individual thing in my mind. It doesn't have to be universally recognized to be flat. If we're waiting for that, it's never going to be flat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just suggesting that to take it to the next level, to start making conclusive statements about the observations that we have collected, you would then be forced to, if you're going to project forward, you would be forced to present some kind of a model. That's all I was saying.
I don't know. Like I came out today more like I wanted to show people how to like do what I do, is not to tell them what I've figured out. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with inspiring others to make the same observations, because you start getting hundreds of people seeing the same observations and you're creating evidence. But when it comes to building models, I don't see a problem with that either. I mean, there's a lot that's involved in recreating a model that's going to act like our Earth when Earth has been created quite perfectly. And are we able to even reproduce that? But that's not to say that we can't reproduce models that show, meteor showers just being water running down the inside of the firmament and creating sparks of light like sonoluminescence, or a hot and a cold object creating condensation, and could we reproduce some of that like I was talking about earlier? Yeah, we can. And that might be the next step. Or that might be someone else's next step that has the funds to do it and is inspired to do that. Sometimes some of us theorize, some of us observe, some of us experiment, some of us build things. But there's no problem with us continuing to build on all this. In fact, it will happen. It's going to happen. All the books are going to have to be rewritten. School is going to have to change. So things will come together and be more congruent, I think, the more that we work on this. It's still in its infancy, I would say. Even though it seems like we've done a lot and a lot has changed, but we have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And it makes me want to ask the question of everybody on the panel individually, like, according to you yourself, which side of this is more important, the science side of things or the not emotional, but the social impact that this has on people? What do you think is more important as far as flat Earth and talking about these things? Do you think the science side is more important, or do you think observing the social repercussions is more important?
I mean, I'll go first by saying that by this debate happening, you've both struck on a really interesting aspect, which is to say that you're coming from this VB from the point of view of an overall overriding social aspect to what we're discussing and how it will be put across to a globe head and how they will respond. In other words, they will demand a model from us. Whereas what Stephen's putting across is that who cares? It's down to him and what he's found out, and he's encouraging others to go and find it out. And in doing so, I will never say to myself, I've got to have a model to observe this. But as soon as I go into a chat room and say, hey, I've just noticed this, or if Stephen went into a globehead chat room and said, hey, I've noticed this about the moon, they'd say, well, what about the neodymium magnet? What do you say is causing, they'd demand other things. But I assumed, Stephen, you can back me up here, you'd say, I don't care what you want from me. I'm just telling you what I've seen.
So,
I don't really care.
Oh, sorry, Stephen. I actually just did a video log on this pretty recently where it was just called Flat Earth Obligations. What are we actually obligated to do and what do we take on as a responsibility? In my opinion, I'm obligated to learn all this for myself and myself only. And I know that sounds really selfish, but this is my journey and my experience, and I'm the one that needs to feel comfortable with how I look at the world and Earth and other human beings and humans' potential, all that kind of thing. However, if you go into this like some of us are, and you're taking all those next steps and you put yourself out there as far as talking to other people, if you have that teacher's kind of mentality, you are as being responsible, because you're taking on the responsibility to maybe teach and share others. But then it's up to you how far you want to go with that. If you gain a little bit more bravery and you want to step up and do something different, like create a content channel, or you want to start going on hangouts or your interviews, things like that, speaking engagements, then you've taken that on as a responsibility because you feel like you want to give to the community that way, but you're not obligated to do that.
VB, I'm all in on personal and emotional, buddy. You know, when I discovered for myself that the stars move in two different directions, that has kept me going. In other words, I'm no longer wasting my time on this flat earth topic. I had to personally show myself this is worth it looking into. I understand now why people are all in on this. I asked Nathan Oakley, what brings you all in on this? For me, I needed something like this. And I can actually send somebody to my Stellarium video or over to COFO 72 and say, hey, it's not nonsense. There's something here. Let's look further into this. So I'll put more money into it, and personal thing for me.
What about you, Stephen?
It seems more like an intermingling to me. You know, it's the personal breakthrough with scientific discovery.
It's about the wow moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's something out there for everyone that's going to change their mind. You know, maybe not for the oldest people in the world. God rest their souls. But you know, everyone else. You know, I think there's got to be some little bit of hope.
Yeah, for me, it's always been about that wow moment. I mean, I'm just a small little channel, and that's what I like to do. I like to take this information that I've heard. I like to present it the way I like to I like to present it the way I like to hear information presented to me. And hopefully there's people out there that like that same thing, that relate to that same way that I approach things. And that those are the people that are going to be my my target demographic. And I'm just kind of like doing it for them so they can have that wow moment the way I did, you know, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was when I discovered this.
Right.
Maybe I can ask the panel to give their answers in terms of where they think we have made progress, as opposed to failures and setbacks and discussions with globeheads that go nowhere. Do you see progress?
I'll go first if you don't mind. I see progress. And sometimes we do get a lot of negative, like when you say arguing with globe heads. I don't really like calling them that, but I honestly continue to. I mean, there's times I might debate a little bit and get in the arguments and get aggressive with things like that. The people that want to learn, they'll find you. And I see a lot of that because I'm involved in a lot of groups on Facebook. I see growth left and right. And also with the channels on YouTube, I mean, it's just exponentially growing. But not only that, flat Earth is becoming like almost like a household name subject. Like we're being called flat Earth activists in the news, you know, and you guys know how much it's been in the media lately with sports people and everything, you know, being turned on to it and talking to it. I think it's growing radically, but a little chaotically, and that's okay because there's no leader. It's just growing on its own, like a green movement. It's just spreading through society the way I think it should normally do. I think there's going to be a breaking point, but I see huge amounts of growth. And I think there's a lot more people out there that are looking into it than are admitting it. And there's a lot of people out there that aren't making content or even on Facebook or any of that. I think it's out there everywhere more than what we assume.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have to wait for the progress to come to us. And my stand, where I stand at with my equipment and everything, excuse me, it gets boring, but I have to wait for something to happen. For instance, Good Times for All filming the sun. He has a major event coming up August 21st, which is the solar eclipse. We're going to get so much information from that. This will be the first full solar eclipse since flat Earth. So sometimes progress takes time. Be patient. The show's going to get better.
Yeah, yeah. For me, the most important thing in all of this, is the defiance of authority. That's the number one priority in all of this. So when I'm out there having battles with globers, globe heads, whatever you want to call them, I'm getting to them on an emotional level. I attack their personal stances of why they feel they need to defend the system, more than hitting them with facts about, distances and things like that. Facts about flat Earth that are obvious truths, as far as I'm concerned. I can't speak for everybody on the panel, but for me, it's about defying authority, and that's what I'm attacking in people, is why they want to obey their overlords so badly. That's what it's all about for me.
It's like IPS says, the Uncle Tom syndrome and the Stockholm syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, better known as battered wife syndrome. We've been battered by Big Brother, the state.
Right. Sometimes they need to prove stuff for themselves. And until they do that, they're never going to come around on this. And, I was there at one time. I think we all were. But once you see something that changes you, whatever it is, it could be anything, then the snowball effect takes place, which somebody said in chat. And that's exactly what it is with me. I found something out, and then the snowball effect took place, and one truth come after the other. I can't prove them all, but I will keep searching and putting the information out there.
Yeah, I had a great guest on the other day. I had a guy named Justin Bernard. I want to give him a shout out. And he raised a good point. I don't know if this is kind of my segue into a different topic. Sorry, Nathan, I'm not trying to hijack your show, brother.
Yeah, that's all good.
Okay. He was saying, and I'd like to hear everyone's take on this, but he was saying that Flat Earth and everything that's happening in Flat Earth on YouTube is definitely migrating heavily towards the live side of things. How do you guys feel about that?
Like we're doing now, you mean?
Yes, as opposed to, like narrated pieces that I used to do more often. Now I've migrated more into live. And he's saying that's just a natural thing, and that's all he does anymore too. It's just go live.
I think that just depends on the person. There are a lot of people out there that don't want their face on camera, and they don't want to go live. But then there's some people that go to that step and want to interact live like this. I mean, I think this is great, but I think just doing content where you're narrating the video is great too. And I can say that because I've done both. I go through waves. Like I go through a period of time where I'm just going to do a couple content videos where I don't talk at all. It's just music and words, or sometimes I talk along with the video. Sometimes all I do is talk as a video log, or it's something like this. I think it just depends on how you're inspired. It's like art. And there's nothing wrong with things moving that way, where a lot more people are going live. But I think that's because a lot more people are looking to connect with like-minded people. They want to actually sit here and look at someone and talk to them and know that they don't think that, And can I add one thing? Because I was following through chat too, and I saw someone put on there that flat earthers are, that flat Earth is growing, but so are the riffs. That, I mean, that's a big piece of advice for me is if you're hanging out with people that are being negative, if you're in a group that's negative on Facebook, or it's a debate group and they're aggressive and you don't like it, and that's giving you the opinion that things are splitting apart, separate yourself from it. You don't need it. How to do realign yourself with the people that are moving forward and doing the right things and being positive, because that's the part of the community you want to see, and that's the part of the community we want the rest of society to see. Leave those other jokers behind. If that's all they want to do is be negative or debate and be aggressive, or if they're getting on your channel and leaving bad comments, boot them out, block them. Just completely realign yourself. People that think that flat Earth is growing, but so are the riffs. Just start heading towards the people that aren't arguing, or that can just have a good conversation without being mean about it and seem like they're splitting their ways. Because you can have a respectful adult conversation if you have two different points of view and still move in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that this great shift towards live. might simply be the result of people's need for immediate gratification. And then
Yeah, I
with
definitely
that,
agree with that. I've got the chat up now, and whenever there's a live show, I'm much more inclined to go and watch it. Obviously, anything that's on demand, I can just watch it whenever I feel like it. A live show's there and then, and there's people to interact with in the chat. Potentially, you can interact with the panel. We can all see what's floating by on the chat and interact with the people who are watching with us. It's a very interactive event, and I say event deliberately because that's what is happening. This right now is an event, and we may not know the controversial thing that we're going to discuss next. I mean, you said, is it going to go more towards live? I think so. I mean, I think people just enjoy that more. Doesn't mean it'll, as Karlee says, just be that, because people like to do both, and that will never change either. But yeah, I think Karlee's also right in the fact that if you're amongst people that aren't being pleasant to you, if you're not having fun, go somewhere else. Find somewhere that is fun. Do things that are enjoyable. Do things that make you smile. Associate with people that are nice. If people are dicks and you don't like that, I often hang around dicks, and sometimes I enjoy the company of dicks. That doesn't mean that it's making me miserable, but as soon as it is, I will remove myself immediately from that situation and never go back. I mean, maybe this is I'll get the answer to VB's question in terms of where we're going further from Eli, Ohio, and Stephen before I move on, so I won't be so rude. Stephen, what do you say? Maybe bring it back to your interview with Stefan Molyneux. So was that actually live when it was first done?
Yeah, there were, certainly not a million people watching it. It just had 1 million views over the last year or so. But he has a regular live viewing audience, I'm sure. And yeah, it was live. I can see why everyone wants things to be live now because, just like VB said, instant gratification, and they like to chat amongst themselves and have their little flakes and their little fights. But
What about you there, Eli, Ohio? Are you enjoying doing the live streaming? Are you keeping an eye on your chat and things like
that? Yeah, I'm all in on the live thing. I think you get a feel of how someone is also. Good. For instance, I will look into what Karlee's doing right now. That's interesting. I never really thought about it until now. And I think that's the way it's headed. I think we get a lot more information with the chat, with the guests. Yeah, that's the way it's headed, and I have nothing against it.
In the same breath, there's enough feuds in Flat Earth, and often it's in the live stream chats that are floating by. People will have their disagreements, people will get banned, then make a sock account and come back and troll you or whatever. I mean, it's one where it's a double-edged sword. There's often a lot of conflicts caused, but if you don't break eggs, you're never going to get an omelette. I think maybe these arguments are inevitable. Maybe we're going to have them anyway. People are going to have them so that they can move past and get to the point like Stephen's described, where you're making your own observations for your own benefit. You're doing your own research so you can satisfy your own curiosity, as opposed to trying to convert every globehead out there into believing what you believe. Why bother?
Yeah, I don't really care. I don't really care to debate with people anymore because most globalists come at you in such a closed-minded state that it's impossible to get to them anyways. You know what I mean? You can show them 1 million different proofs and they'll just rage at you all day long. So it's like, are you going to waste your time with somebody like that? No, you're just going to ban them.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. A lot of the times these trolls that keep coming back and coming back. Okay, it makes you think. Okay, why do you have to keep saying this over and over? Wouldn't you rather just have your one account and say it the one time and let the impact of the gravity of your statement, impact the conversation? But they don't see it that way. People that have to keep coming back and trolling, I feel as though that's a big revelation of their insecurity. If they feel like they need to say something 100 times so that it can have the same weight that the thing you said one time has. And then furthermore, some of those same people actually have their own platform, their own semi-successful channels, and do shows on them, and then still go out of their way to come on to their rival's show and spam them with 100 comments.
Yeah, I never
don't
do
get
that.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. You don't go to the hot dog stand and say, "Hey, screw you guys for hating or liking hot dogs. I want hamburgers. Come on."
Did I hear someone say Jed Skeptic?
Jed Skeptic? Oh, he has a bunch of accounts too, but not as many as others, I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't even have to do any segue. We've gone into the gossip section of the show. Switch off here if you're not interested in us bitching about other YouTubers, but that's inevitably what's going to happen for the next 10 minutes before we end the show. So let's just let it happen. Why not? So
okay, everybody sucks. Everybody sucks. No, just kidding.
No, I mean, you've had a turnaround, VB. I mean, I'll let you off the hook for this one. I've given you a hard time already about your dogmatism, and frankly, I saw Globebusters in the chat, and he completely backed up you and They Lie Ohio. He sided with you, just so you know. So there you go. That's the first one. I know you've had your differences, and I don't want to go over it again for a third time in terms of your apologies that you've made. But maybe we'll start with Jed Skeptic. You brought him up, They Lie Ohio. Why do you mention this person who I no longer speak to?
Well, me and him, we got off on the wrong foot at the in the beginning. He already dubbed. He likes to group people together. And for anybody that does not know, I'm not a flat earther. Okay, I have nothing against what you guys are doing. So much off this, and I'm not saying the world is not flat. I don't know yet, and I will keep looking. But Jed Skeptic has bunched me in with flat earthers, and he claims that I think the moon is flat, and it just started off wrong with us. And ever since then, I have a rule on YouTube, and I wish everybody would follow this rule. Everything I say to you in a comment on a live stream or anywhere, I would say to you as if you live next door. And I wish every YouTuber was like that, because Jed would be speechless then.
I'm going to give this a bit of an example. So I'm going to ask Stephen Chess a question. How many hours a day, Stephen, do you reckon you spend trolling butchers' websites and things of that nature?
Never.
But your world is still vegan?
Yeah, I'm still a vegan. I still don't eat animals.
Yet you're not compelled to tell people how wrong this is on a daily basis, and go to comment sections and live chats and tell these people how evil they are and how wrong they are and how stupid they are.
No, my roommates are vegan. You know, how far would you get with that? You know, you guys suck. Stop eating meat. You're gonna die. You know.
Yeah, but yet we have people who come to us and say, "Man, you're a fool. Obviously, the Earth's a globe. Here's an argument that starts with the idea of it being a globe and then goes on to prove how it's a globe. Aren't you stupid?"
Yeah, a lot of logical fallacies in the globular community, or globular community.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the gossip section will be a little bit shorter than I anticipated. Was there anything else you guys need to get off your chest before we round out this show?
Yeah, stop trolling.
Yeah, I don't have anything specifically to say, but I'll just make a comment when it comes to the trolls. I think that it's a two-part system. Number one, I think that the ones that are actual humans and not bots or paid to do it, I think that they are actually a little bit curious. So they get in there even though they make fun of it. Number two, I think they do it for the entertainment reasons, which is very, very immature. But that's why they do it. And society is immature. We have no idea how to treat other human beings and how to respect other human beings. So this is what you have, especially when their, truths are questioned.
I know you've got something to say, VP.
Well, what do you want me to speak on? Exactly. Because I could talk about this all day long, man. I don't want to bog your show down with this.
Man, platform's all yours. This is your bit of the show.
Oh, really? Well, the one thing I'd like for everybody to do is, and I know this is an impossibility, or some people might consider this a complete impossibility because of doxings and things that have happened in the past. But in a perfect world, I would have it where nobody had any wrenches or spanners, as they like to call them. And each person would just exist on the merit of their one account that everybody knows them by. It's like what I was trying to tell Gem Panda, who I get along with really, really well. I really like Gem Panda a lot, but he's like the blood nemesis of many, many people in this scene, I'm sure, including Steven here. But me and Gem Panda have never had anything bad to say to each other. I was trying to explain to him one time, don't you think you'd be better off just existing on your own merit of your own name and losing the 100 or so extra accounts that you have? And he says, well, I just keep getting banned. Well, if he never got banned, then he wouldn't feel the need to make 100 accounts. It's just a vicious cycle. That's why I say lose the spanners, lose the wrenches. In my show, I've never had a wrench at my live stream, and really nothing bad happens there. Sure. Trolls show up, and the thing is that I let them say whatever they want, because I was in their shoes at one point. I was the troll on the other side there.
Sure, so but things are a little bit different when it comes to bigger shows like Globebusters. We can't have the chat flying by at 100 miles an hour with trolls when they have real people in there trying to have conversations. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's what I was just going to say. As a moderator, it's not easy when you have that fake account spamming 10 messages, and I'm on a cell phone, so 10 messages takes up the whole chat right there, and you can't follow it, and neither can the people that are taking the time out of their day to listen to that 3-hour show. I think it's good to have the moderators. You want that show and that experience to be the best it can for the people that are there to learn.
On the other
it's not just a playground. It's not a playground for those that want to be immature about it.
On the other side of the coin, if people are really concerned with what's being said in the chat, they might not even be listening to the actual show at that point. See?
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes the chat is interacting, and you get inspiration and good information from the chat as well. 2 eyes are better than one. So there's more people involved.
The fun of it for these trolls to have multiple accounts is the act of you banning them and then signing back in on a new account and then saying their next troll thing and waiting for you to ban them so they can sign in on their next account and troll you again. That's the whole fun. So you take that away from them, they get bored, and then they actually start participating in the chat. I feel as though if you don't have any moderation at all, you'll do a lot better.
You're right when it comes to an extent, but these are only like 1 or 2 people you're dealing with. When you have a bunch of people coming in who aren't these 1 or 2 people with 100 accounts, it's different. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yeah, I guess.
I'd like to say something, please. Here's a good example. Flat Earth Vancouver, BC was in a hangout with Tim Osman, and I can't remember the other gentleman. And he even said, no fun to troll when they kick my Flat Earth Vancouver, BC name out of there. Then they don't know who I am. So right there's a good troll that's telling you he doesn't like his name to be kicked out of chat.
Then we're doing them a favor. They have a sad life, and the only thing they can do is get banned to have fun. So ban them. It's fun.
It's definitely what they're there to do. It's definitely what they're looking for. They're looking to come in, intrude, get banned, and keep intruding. I hate to throw this word around, but they're basically raping the chat.
They're showing their colors.
Because we are a society that gets off on cheap thrills. This is kind of what Flat Earth is all about. Is humanity needs to change this kind of sick stuff. It's ridiculous. We're better than that. All you trolls out there.
That's why I try to. Well, that's why I try to lead by example and not ban them. Then after a while, their accountability becomes a factor, and then everybody else will start putting them in check. And I don't even have to do it; it just naturally occurs. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's essentially a balancing act. And I'll say this now, that if anybody finds themselves banned from my chat, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me. My email address is nathanoakley1980@aol.com, and I will potentially unban you. The problem is that I trust every single one of my moderators, and often I'll get in touch or discuss with them people that they've banned, and there's not been a single instance where I've gone, yeah, I wouldn't have done the same. And when you're running the show, it's too difficult to actually moderate your chat when it's flying by. You just can't do it. So you have to rely on your moderators. And I've got good moderators. I've seen Stephen Chess banning people, and I've been observing what he's been doing. And a lot of what he's been banning in this instance is Gem Panda. And I'll agree with VB. I've not had a single cross word with Gem Panda, but I've heard the stories. I know people who has. He'll probably have a little smirk while I'm saying this. Good for him. But it is what it is. It's one of those. I can give you all of the different cliches in the world to describe the chat, but it is, as you say, useful. there are decent conversations that you can have in chat rooms. It's never going to be the case that you can convert somebody with a completely opposite view to you in a live chat room. That's a nonsense. But for people who are on the same page that want to discuss an idea, it's a useful opportunity. I've had chats with Eric DeBay. Now, that's somebody I'm certainly not in contact with, but for the fact that he was in a chat room, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm now banned on the imaginary curve, as far as I'm aware. When I went in last time, I was pre-banned before the show started. So it's like, well, for me, that it loses its luster. That show has lost its luster as a result. So you find yourself unsubscribing and going, oh, I don't want to not involve myself in the live chat. That's a big part of the interactive experience that we've described on this show. And for me, it's a big shame. The same thing applies to Jeren. I had to recently get in touch with Jeren and say, a couple of years ago, I trolled Globebusters. I'm pretty sure it was Globebusters or ISS Live when it was on Jeren's channel. And the net result of that was I got banned on Nathan Oakley 1980. So roll forward a couple of years, I used a different account for chatting because I always used to use my phone to comment. And then when I said, okay, I'm going to stop swearing and being vitriolic with my comments, I'll use my main account, which ended up being Nathan Oakley 1980. And I found what I've been banned on Jeren's channel, so I had to get in touch cap in hand and say, yeah, I'm banned from back in the day, but I was trolling. I know full well it would be for good reason. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Was there any last things that you guys wanted to add before we close out the show? I'll start with you, Karlee.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute real quick. I guess closing remarks, I always like to say hi to I have a lot of groups on Facebook, but the one that is my baby is Flat and Happy. So hello, everyone, if anyone out there is watching or will watch in the future. And I did want to do a quick shout out. One of my moderators in that group made me a necklace. I don't know if you guys can see that okay, but it's like an azimuthal equidistant map, and then it has beads on it. It's just really beautiful, and she sent that to me. She's going to be my roommate when we go to the conference, so I just wanted to shout out to her. Her name is Monique Kennard. So that's all I wanted to say. I really appreciated being on the show and loved being on with this panel. Excellent job, guys.
It's a real pleasure having you here, Karlee. Thank you so much for being here. And Stephen, again, thank you for being here. Was there anything you wanted to add before we close out?
No, Nathan. Yeah, good to be here, man. Good talking. Good to see everyone.
Life is always better with a bit of Stephen Chess. So thank you very much for being here. And They Lie, Ohio, man, you've done us proud once we got you connected.
I'd like to thank you, Nathan, for having me on, buddy. It's been a pleasure, and it's nice meeting everybody. VB, I already know you, but Karlee, Stephen, nice meeting you guys. And to everybody out there that is in denial, go out, do some tests yourself, shut the hell up until you do that. But hey, great show. Thanks, guys.
And last but not least, VB, thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you, Nathan. It's been an honor, as always. It's been an honor to be on your show. This has been an excellent panel. Some really, really bright people here, and I'm really glad I got to participate in this. And I'm really glad that more people out there got to hear what I have to say about, moderation and the chat and trolling. And if anything, I'd like to just tell people out there, if you're gonna troll, just do it good, do it really funny, do it clever. That way people will maybe respond to it in a positive way, even if they think that you're wrong, even if you're fighting with them. Just do it in a funny, good, positive way that something, at least something, can be gained from your trolling. Don't just troll just to be an idiot, just out of hatred. Because when you hate people, it shows your insecurities, it shows your fears, it shows your weakness. So just do it big, do it good. And thank you so much, Nathan.
That's a pleasure. Do you want to add something to that, Stephen? I can see you itching on the mic. I don't mind if you want to add something to that.
Just troll well, my troll nemesis.
Indeed. And with that, I will say to the live audience, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and on the upload, comment below. I've been Nathan Oakley. I will see you all in the next video.